Hello. Welcome to After the Tower, a podcast about change and transformation. My name is Toland and I am your host, and I'm happy to be with you in this moment. So I'm coming to you with sort of a in-between episode. It's like a very, very late, maybe season 1 finale and a very, very early season 2 teaser, I suppose. You know, when I put out the first batch of episodes of After the Tower, I had an idea of doing like an episode, just like a solo episode, kind of doing a little conclusion. I thought it'd be nice to have 10 episodes, and I thought it might be just like a nice way to tie a bow over the whole process. And I did record something, and I just didn't love what I recorded, like back in early July, I think. But I'm coming back now because I want to, one, you know, I've had more experiences and more time away from releasing the episodes, and I feel like I have some insights about that process, but I also want to recommit. I didn't know when I created this podcast if I would continue with it. I just decided to put it out there and see how it felt. But as time has gone on, I realized I really enjoyed the podcast and I want it to continue. And so I am kind of publicly recommitting with this episode. And to be honest, I have spent the whole week trying to record this podcast. I don't know. I keep trying to articulate something, and each time it just feels less and less impactful and true. And I don't know, something just never feels right about it. And I think partially it is due to the fact that it is harder for me to do these solo episodes. It's just not as natural. And then there is a lot of self-criticism that can come in. And also, I'm not accountable to anyone in the same way. So it's easy for me to scrap it. But also, I think there's a lot of things I want to say, but I'm having a hard time tuning into what's the most important thing to say. And I think I'm going to try to be as brief as possible, because when I try to dig deep and provide something rich and really make all these connections, it's not seeming to come together in the way that I want. And so I think I'm just going to share a little bit about the process of making the podcast, because I do want to share something about that, because it really was a transformative moment for me. And then I want to share a little bit more about what I'm hoping for the next season. So that's the plan. And I'm releasing this version of the episode unless something really bad happens. We'll see. And by really bad, I mean my cat jumping on me while I record. But anyway, so, this project has represented something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. I didn't know it was going to be a podcast necessarily, but I've always really wanted to share my voice and share my perspective and influence people with my perspective. I mean, that is something that has just drawn me for a really long time. And I just was always afraid of what people would think and other people's judgments. I lived a lot of my life afraid of that. I was afraid to be different and weird. And I thought that if I deviated from what in my mind was the norm, that I would be rejected and that people wouldn't like me anymore. And for some reason, I couldn't handle that thought. I carried a lot of shame throughout my whole life. I always felt very ashamed of myself, and I always felt like I didn't deserve things and that I needed to prove my worth to people. And I had to do that by just being as inoffensive as possible, as almost I didn't want to be difficult. I didn't want to be too much. I wanted to be likable to people. And I really spent a lot of time trying to hide whatever didn't match that. And that's something I think I talked about in my solo episode. I honestly don't remember what I said in that episode, but I'm sure I talked about it in some episode. But it's a huge theme in my life, so I think it will come up again and again if I continue further on with this podcast. So it'll definitely be something I'll circle back to and talk about. But as I said, I always felt this intense shame and this fear of saying the wrong thing or causing harm through my words, or that, or just like feeling like it was arrogant to even think anyone cared what I thought about things. And it would show up in like all sorts of ways. Even sending texts can be really anxiety producing for me. I remember in high school, like friends would make fun of me for how long it took me to respond to texts, but it was literally like out of fear. Like even simple things, I would have a hard time mustering up the courage to respond. It would feel like I didn't want to say the wrong thing, or I would think of something funny to say, but then I'm like, what if that's misinterpreted? And social media was the same thing. Like I really wanted to like create and have fun online, which, it's probably not the easiest place to have fun anymore, but still. And I just like couldn't. It was like really hard. It really felt like very anxiety producing. I mean, I've become a little bit more familiar with it at this point, but it still causes me quite a bit of stress thinking about sharing and putting my voice out there. So anyway, this is something I've lived with, but it's also been something I've been working on in various capacities. And, obviously the ayahuasca experience was a big part of healing some of that. And especially coming out has been helpful in me, like owning my uniqueness and feeling comfortable being myself and being okay with the fact that not everyone's going to like it. And this was kind of the next level of that. And, my work, when I was kind of being accountability buddies with Mercy, who I talked to on my first episode in the beginning of January 2025, and we were like kind of helping each other through each other's projects. That was helpful, and just like kind of getting some forward momentum going, but also working with Kelsey, and, Kelsey being this mirror for me of my own fears and really helping me see that those fears weren't grounded in much reality. And that, yes, like my biggest fear of like everyone in my life exiling me, it was a possibility, but it certainly wasn't a likely outcome to releasing the podcast. And so I really got to a point where I was like, I got to do something. And so the idea for After the Tower came about, and, Kelsey basically allowed me to, introduce the idea in the class I was taking of hers, Living Your Design. And so a bunch of folks from there were into the idea of being the podcast. And that's kind of how it came about. I did obviously reach out to two people outside of that context. And, it just felt like for the first time in a while, like I had energy. Like I think for the longest time I've been kind of, I don't know, feels like I've been swimming underwater. I have an idea, I have a vision, but every time I try to move forward, it's like I can't see clearly, I can't move well, I can't get things going. It's been hard, and honestly, it's like something that I continually struggle with. It's like whenever things are at the edge of my comfort zone, I just get frozen, and I get kind of in this like mist, like this mist kind of comes over me, and I really get paralyzed and stuck often. And so that's been happening for me for a while, but finally, like there was some energy, there was some fire under my feet, and I was creating the podcast. And, I had the episodes done probably like more or less 2 weeks before I actually ended up releasing them. And it was really because, I had the energy to do it. And then all of a sudden the fear creeps back in, and the doubt creeps back in, and the what will people think creeps back in. And, finally at the end of May, I released it. And mostly just because of the people I interviewed. I mean, they were so generous with their time and their energy and their stories. Like I promised them I'd put it out, and it would be unfair of me not to honor that promise and not to honor what I said that I would do for them. And so, I released them, and my fear of people in my life, whether that be family, relatives, even, ex-coworkers, acquaintances, like, I don't know, hating me because of what I put out, that never really came to fruition. Most people reached out with nice things to say, and I mean, no one reached out with negative things to say, so I don't know why I'm saying that. And people who I didn't even think would listen or I didn't even think would enjoy it liked it or liked certain episodes of it and were really supportive to me in ways that I didn't expect. And it was this moment of proving the fear wrong. Like the fear had been telling the story in my mind for years and years, and I had never tested it. And so I could, like think that that narrative was true, that being too different, being too weird, or being, having these different beliefs. And again, like I'm someone who literally I don't need the people in my life to share my view on the world. It's just not something I've ever cared about. I really have my own spirituality, my own perspective on the world that's deeply held and unique to me. And that is so important to me. And I just need people to respect that I believe those things. I've never had an evangelical bone in my body. I don't think people should think what I think. I like when people are interested in my perspective on things and like curious about my take, but I don't need our worldviews to overlap. And so it's interesting that I felt like other people would think that about me. Anyway, I got this moment, and it was like this a chunk of shame that I had been carrying kind of fell off. And I realized like, no one cares. No one cares what I do. And for me, that is a very liberating thing. I think for other people that would feel very differently in a different context. And that's the thing about life. It's like full of paradoxes. Like something can be true, but the opposite can be true in another scenario. But for me, it is literally like no one cares. No one cares what I do that much. And so it gives me the freedom to do what I want because I'm not, people aren't depending on me to behave a certain way. They don't need me to behave a certain way. They're too busy wrapped up in their own lives and their own journeys. And if they really are that upset by the way I live my life, then they're not meant to be my life. It's as simple as that. And so I think I just had this moment of like, I really couldn't care. Like, I just don't care anymore. Like I'm fine being myself. And if someone really is so bothered by what I said on a podcast, they don't want to be my life anymore, then I think that means they're not supposed to be my life. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, I got me. I know that I'm on my side. I know what my intentions are. And of course, if I cause harm and, someone in my community brings that to me, of course I'm going to take that in. And, I can't live my life concerned about every single thing that everyone in my life might think about something I do or say. It's an exhausting way to live. And truthfully, I don't think it makes the world better. I think our society wants us all to conform to a certain ideal or a certain standard that benefits, the systems. And I don't think that's in our best interest. I think, according to human design, which is a perspective I obviously take on and use a lot, the point of human design is that we are all unique. We are all unique, and we all have a unique perspective, a unique thing that we're doing. And that when we embrace that about ourselves, life moves much better, because we all are we're all part of an ecosystem, and everyone has a role to play. And when you are forcing yourself into a role that isn't honest and true to you, it throws off the ecosystem. And so for me, it's the more I am true to myself, the more I'm going to align myself to the things that I'm meant to do to be a part of this ecosystem and to contribute to creating a world where people are free to be themselves, where people are safe and just free. Yeah, free. I mean, there's a lot more I could say to that. And a big part of why the previous recordings haven't worked is because I do feel like there's a connection to this revelation and bigger issues, but I haven't figured out how to make that point well. And it just ended up sounding like kind of bar talk that you have with friends when you're just riffing. And I don't really want to put that out there. I want to try to put out things that are integrated within me and I know how to articulate, and just I'm not there at this point. But I do want to say that I feel like this I don't know, this felt connected to me with a lot of things. And so anyway, I had this realization that no one cares, and I really felt free and excited to just continue to share. And then, I don't know, the fear like snuck back in, which was frustrating. And I didn't even really realize it. I really thought I was just kind of taking some time to integrate. And maybe at first that's what it was. And then I went through a breakup with someone who I'd been dating for a while who, you know, it hurt. You know, it hurt to go through that. And I think I maybe overindulged. And I just, you know, woke up and now it's August 15th. And it's been a while since I released those episodes. And I'm like, what happened? You know, like, how did I get here? I thought I was really going to move forward. And I was really excited about the direction I was taking. I felt like I was finally moving towards what I wanted. And then I guess I got just sucked back in. And it's funny because like a lot of opportunities kind of came my way. But these opportunities didn't look what I wanted them to look like, or they didn't look like what I thought they would look like. And I don't know. But truthfully, I really didn't feel drawn to any of them for whatever reason. And I have to, I guess, trust that. But then a part of me sitting right now, I'm like, was that just self-sabotage? And I don't have the answer to that. All I know is I can't control what I've done in the past. I can only control what I do now. And, you know, I had this moment, and I remember what it felt like after releasing the podcast, that moment of feeling like I'm like free from that fear and like free from the burden of the shame for like this moment, and feeling excited to shine forth and share and put myself out there in the way that I've always wanted to. And I know that I can feel that again. And this is what I'm on this podcast doing right now, is just trying to recommit to that and recommit to this project. I have loved doing those interviews, and I'm so grateful to everyone who shared their story. It was like such a gift. And I love talking to people one-on-one. I love talking about transformation and change and like the real things in life, and digging in and seeing how we can get through difficult times, and we can find our way to the other side, and we can learn, and we can heal. And I want to continue to do it. And so I'm putting out the call for season 2. If you're listening to this recording, which I'm grateful to you to do that, and you have a story that you want to tell, a story of change and transformation that you'd feel comfortable sharing in a public arena, I'd love to hear from you. And we can see if there's a good match between us in terms of sharing that story. You can email me at tolandlawrence@gmail.com, or if you know me personally, you can just text. But yeah, I really want to tell more stories. I want to have more interviews. I want to, continue this project because it really has been such a gift to me, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for everyone who has been so helpful in making it happen. And I truly am excited to see what comes. And so my goal is sometime in the fall to release another batch of episodes, another batch of interviews. And yeah, I'm excited for anyone who listens to listen. And anyway, I think that is all for now. Just grateful, and I hope that you have a good day. Gosh, it is hard to end a podcast, I'll tell you what. So I'll just stop talking. Okay, bye.